Oh, good, you're here. Let me show you the SVG portion of the graphics part of the game. Uh, so current SVG support, this is structure ODT, which is in the docs folder in the repository. I'm on page 8, which is current SVG support. I've encoded here when parsing the SVG file from Inkscape, the different shapes that are drawn. So right now it's supporting circle. You can see circle over here, ellipse, rectangle, and the path shape, which are nodes in the SVG file that are parsed and drawn, hopefully correctly at this point, through OpenGL in the game. And if we look at the SVG file, the code for it, it's broken down into groups or nodes in the XML format. So we've got ellipse here, grouping, which is mostly ignored, except for when we're talking about grouping shapes into a frame or frames into an animation. Rectangle, ellipse, circle. And those can more or less be drawn fairly accurately as you would expect going from Inkscape into the game engine. The important attributes of each shape are parsed through the attributes function. For example, reading the RGBA attributes, you can search into going back further or deeper into these parsing functions. But they basically take the data that's in the SVG file and load it into a structure, or a map in this case, in clojure that can be referenced later and sent to the shader, which I'll talk about some other time. But if we go back to the documentation, those are the shapes that are recognized. The circle, ellipse, and rectangle all have fills that are drawn with the shape. The path is drawn, but it's not filled at this point, so that's ignored. And for the path, there are different joins: bevel, round, and miter. Miter is the only one supported at this point. And the way that's handled is that the path is parsed with the parse function. All the lines are, and these are all straight lines, no curves at this point. The line widths for the shapes are parsed and used. So if you make a wider stroke that's a different color, currently the engine will support that. And it's only solid colors, and I'm not sure if the widths can be changed or not, but the line joins are only supported with miter joins, and lines are not capped, so those are not supported yet either. So parsing the path, then to handle the line joins, then we're parsing straight lines at this point. Each straight line then is parsed, and then if it's to be a miter join, then it adds I think a couple of triangles to get that miter join, and the triangles are just filled solid triangles of the same color. And so you'll get that miter effect, but they're drawn separately as triangle shapes. So the lines will be drawn, and then triangles will be drawn to fill in the miter join. For properties, then, the only properties now currently are physics related. So if a shape is to be solid, then you add the square brackets with solid inside to the label of the shape. And here's one. So the bounds of this shape are the solid that represents the character. This is character 1, which is that cute little green guy. And then that will be treated as the solid for that frame in this case. So anything that's solid will be treated as solid with the physics engine, and you'll be able to bump into it and it should react. The physics engine is fairly simple right now. Only handles axis aligned bounding boxes or rectangles. In Inkscape, you can set the visibility of the shape here with the little eye thing, whether it's visible or not, and that is represented in the SVG file as display none attribute or style. And the graphics engine currently recognizes that and will not draw it as a shape on the screen. And then in the SVG file, there's translate, scale, rotate, and matrix transforms. For example, down here, we've got a scale which inverts the x-axis, it looks like. And the graphics engine will handle that appropriately before sending it off to the OpenGL renderer. All right, so that's current SVG support. Fairly basic right now, but as I start getting the graphics a little bit more complicated, a little bit more interesting, I'll be adding more support for the SVG stuff. All right, thanks for joining me.